Design Society in the Future, ESE 304, Paper and Prezi Presentation by Jane Schober. I have been a student receiving public education for the past 18 years. The first 13 years of my experience as a student were much easier than the past 5. At age 17, I began to lose my eyesight. Once this began happening, I started seeing the world I lived in a new light, quite literally. From age 16 to age 17, I went from having 20/20 vision to having blind spots blur my visual acuity to not being able to see at all at night or in low light settings. I could no longer see the whiteboard in the front of the classroom or read standard-sized 12 font on a piece of paper or in books. This made school more challenging for me, and school wasn't the only part of my life that was challenging. Many social settings became more difficult as well. I could no longer read menus or menu boards. I could not see where I was walking in dim light restaurants. I could not see aisles and seats in movie theaters, and walking at night became a difficult task. The more eyesight I lost, the more I felt I was living in a world that was not designed for me, or for anyone with a physical impairment for that matter. Because I have been a student for the majority of my life, school and the educational environment has also been my social environment. It wasn't until I began to lose my eyesight that I started to notice my interactions with the physical and social environments around me. In order to use many products or participate in the use of a building comfortably, it requires utilizing your vision, something that I no longer have the ability to utilize fully. Over the past 5 years, it has been brought to my attention that many buildings and products in our society are not available to our entire population, simply because of the way they are designed. Over the course of this semester, I have been examining universal design in my online ESE 304 class. Universal design is an orientation to any design process that focuses on the overall experience of the product by all users. Universal design is a human-based approach to design that creates equitable access to a wider variety of users. This class has helped me to explore universal design as it applies to the built environment, technology, education, and social justice issues. My experience and realization of inequity of design has been solidified through the content of this class. I have created the following presentation to highlight the importance of using universal design principles from the beginning of the design process, instead of having it be an afterthought. After being a student for 18 years, I will be transitioning to becoming a teacher next semester. Throughout this presentation, I will include how I am going to continue to be an agent of change when it comes to using universal design, and how this commitment will benefit my students and students to come. I have also created a Prezi presentation for this topic. Design Society in the Future, created by Jane Schober. How can design create barriers? If the design process does not effectively consider function, cost, purpose, and aesthetics, usability can be limited to a certain typical population of users. How do these barriers affect an individual socially? The design of a product or environment has the ability to affect a person's experience during their interaction or time spent in the space. If a person is not able to use the product equitably or independently due to their abilities, they are less likely to feel welcome or useful. Equitable design is an issue of social justice. Where do these barriers occur? A barrier is present when equity of participation and opportunity are not present due to a person's physical, intellectual, or social abilities. This can occur in built environments, when using products, and when information is presented. What do these barriers look like? I'll give you a few examples. Stairs to enter a building. People that use wheelchairs or have trouble walking will not be able to enter this building. Information being presented only through text. A person with a vision impairment will not be able to access this information. Information being presented verbally. A person with a hearing impairment will not be able to access this information. Dim lighting. A person with a vision impairment may not be able to see as accurately as they might be able to in better lighting. This is just a few examples of barriers that can be presented through design. What can be done to break these barriers? The implementation of universal design at the beginning of every design process. Having a human-based approach from the beginning, rather than having it be an afterthought. What is universal design? An approach to designing products and environments to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible. Universal design is a continual process. It is not accomplished overnight. It is an ongoing process that is meant to be built upon. Think of it as universal designing rather than design, a verb rather than a noun. How will I be an agent of change? My future profession is to be a special education and elementary school teacher. In order to achieve social justice and equity in design, I need to be cognizant of barriers that could be in place in my future classroom. I need to be flexible in my lesson planning and assessment of student learning. I need to follow the principles of universal design for learning. Not only will I use these principles in my own classroom, but I will teach these principles to my students, creating a generation of advocates. The 3 principles for universal design for learning. Multiple means of representation. Present content to students in a way that is accessible to all. Multiple means of engagement. Allow students to engage in meaningful and multiple ways. Multiple means of expression. Assess students' learning in a way that highlights these strengths, provides flexibility in the methods of assessment. A quote from Leslie Keynes Wiseman. Universal design is a vehicle for promoting human well-being, environmental wholeness, and the principles of participatory democracy. Thank you for watching, listening, or reading along.